Welcome to ABCs of Business. Always be compliant. Brought to you by ILSA, Insurance Licensing Services of America. And now here's your host, Doug Foresta.
Hello and welcome to ABCs of Business. Always be compliant. This is your host, Doug Foresta, and today my guest is Scott Wede, the Executive Director of the Surplus Lines Association of Arizona. And we're going to be talking about what brokers and producers need to know about surplus lines, trends in the industry, and more. Scott Wede, thank you so much for joining me today.
Good morning, Doug. Thank you for asking.
Where I'd like to start, actually, is before we get into surplus lines, I'm actually curious about how did you get involved in the surplus lines industry?
Well, it goes back a few years, but I was a retail broker for a large independent agency here in Arizona, and I handled some very large commercial accounts in utilities, arena, aviation, principally, and those type of risks lend themselves to the E&S or surplus lines market. So that was kind of my introduction into that. And over the years, developed a clientele that had that need. And then I became a board member of the association here in Arizona. And eventually, after retiring from 40 plus years as a retail broker, I became the executive director of the Surplus Line Association of Arizona.
Thank you. And I know that we have done a previous episode about surplus lines, but I still want to, for the sake of this episode, ask you, what is the definition of surplus lines versus the retail side of insurance?
Well, there's a legal definition, but I think the practical definition is it is a insurance product that is designed for specific risks, if you will, or needs that are outside the general admitted market. Malpractice type coverages, aviation, ocean marine, the type of policy or coverages that are not typically part of the retail or admitted market.
And let's talk about trends. What trends are you currently seeing in the surplus lines industry?
Well, I think because of its entrepreneurial nature, the surplus lines industry or the brokerage tends to be in front of a lot of trends, if you will. So, if you're dealing in the tech market, e-commerce, security, biotech, that sort of thing, I see those type of risks being met within the surplus lines community or the underwriting community. So if you're looking at those type of exposures, typically that type of exposure risk will be fulfilled through the E&S market.
Let's talk about challenges. What challenges are you seeing within the surplus lines industry?
Wow, I think there's probably many challenges depending on the type of broker. However, I think the one that, as an association here in Arizona, we've addressed is the talent, the lack of talent, if you will, within the industry. Gaining new talent and bringing up brokers, underwriters, the service employees within the industry. I think it's an education issue. It's been a topic, if you will, for the last 50 years that I've been in the business, and I think the industry is finally at a point where it's starting to address that.
And can you say a little bit more about how you see the industry starting to address that?
Well, there's several ways. I think the wholesale brokerage community has, through AMGA or NAPSLO, developed training courses, if you will. But those courses typically have been set up for experienced brokers. I think the real issue that the brokers I deal with are concerned with is the back room or attracting new talent to the industry. And that attracting new talent has been an issue, like I said, for probably 50 years. So how do we get the millennials, if you will, interested in becoming part of who we are and what we do? So our efforts here locally, and I can see that trend on a nationwide basis, is to get the message out to new employee prospects, if you will, that this is an industry that has a lot of promise, has a lot of opportunity, and is something they should be interested in.
Well, speaking of interested, I know that one of the challenges is that there are more people, new people coming into surplus lines. And then with that comes new challenges. Can you talk about some of the new challenges that you're seeing as new people do enter the surplus line field?
Well, I guess it's a common problem going back to when I started in the industry. Most people don't even know what the insurance industry is all about. I think the common perspective is that we sell auto and homeowners policies, whether we're Geico or State Farm or Farmers, that type of brokerage type arrangement, and so they're kind of put off by that. So getting the message out that this is a technical career. It has sort of I'll use the Walter Mitty type analogy. You can be just about anything and anybody you want to be on any given day. You can be in aviation one day, the next day ocean marine, construction, all those sort of things. So it has an appeal, I think, for a broad interest of talent that we could attract to the industry. Basic knowledge of who we are and what we do, I think, has been lacking for a number of years. So getting the message out, I think, is the mission.
What are the chief complaints that you hear when it comes to processors and dealing with new people coming into the surplus field?
I think it's just a lack of knowledge, and you can't blame the people coming in because they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
So again, one of the missions, if you will, that our association here locally is addressed is let's get into the high schools and into the community college arena and start getting the message out and providing a pathway for new employees, if you will, to come to the surplus lines brokerage market, and that just takes time. But again, it is getting the message to high school graduates, community college attendees, or we're talking returning veterans, these type of groups, showing them the opportunities that exist in this industry.
And hopefully through this podcast, they'll get to know more about surplus lines.
I'm with you there, Doug. I think the deal is, again, getting the message out that we are this very professional industry. We provide a needed, an important service in the business community, and there's a place for just about anyone.
Well said. So what are some of the top things? I mean, I know that the list could be a long one, but what are some of the top things that filers need to know when it comes to the surplus lines industry?
Well, I think the basic criteria would be that they actually understand what insurance policy is. Most states like Arizona, when you do your surplus lines filings for the taxes, you go online and there's a electronic filing system that allows you to do that. Most of the filing systems I've seen are pretty straightforward. I mean, they ask what is the policy number, the named insured, this expiration date. So I think there's basic knowledge of exactly what is on the declarations page of a policy. Plus, you have to understand, what the underwriting companies are, and be able to list those, and what kind of classes of business that the policy basically provides coverage for. Other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think the challenge for any filer, if you will, and I experienced this as a retail broker, I had 43 licenses, 43 different jurisdictions. There are 40, right. Currently, I think there's 51 or 53, I'm not sure the exact number, jurisdictions that have 53 different ways of filing of taxes. And the NRRA was to help, was to address that. It never really came to fruition, although a lot of things were made a lot simpler with home state definitions and those sort of things. But the fact of the matter is, every jurisdiction has their own way. And that's, I feel their pain. It's tough to keep up.
Well, let's talk about the attitude of regulators when it comes to the surplus lines industry. In your experience, what is the general attitude of regulators towards surplus lines?
Well, my experience has been most of them are pretty open and receptive, if you will, to how we operate and why the surplus lines community exists. They understand that we're not part of the norm. We are entrepreneurial. The policies are designed specifically for different classes of businesses or a unique situation that might exist. So I think there's this understanding of if you provide us a very specific solution within the insurance industry, as long as you're providing that service and you're transparent about the way you do business, I think the regulators are pretty well set with that. Again, it's an educational process in a lot of cases where you have regulators that come out of the life or group health arena, or they're coming out of the retail admitted market arena. They need a little education, but for the most part, my experience has been they are fairly receptive to the way surplus lines is underwritten and marketed.
So my next question for you then is, if I am a broker who's thinking about learning more and getting into the surplus lines industry, what are some resources? How can I learn more about surplus lines?
I would start with AMGA or NAPSLO, the major associations within the industry. You can go to a lot of the state websites, surplus line association websites. There's information there. You may want to contact some of the larger brokerages regarding what they look for as a broker, what their requirements may be. So there's places to go. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any, there's not a library, so to speak, but there are websites and there are associations that provide that kind of knowledge.
And if people want to learn more about the Surplus Lines Association of Arizona, how can they go about doing that?
Well, we have, on our website, in fact, we just have upgraded, if you will, our education portals. We have partnered with the Independent Insurance Agents and Brokers of Arizona in providing a educational portal just for surplus lines. So there's some information on the background, what surplus lines is, what it does, the licensing type questions, and that sort of thing. So I believe there are other states or other sites that provide that sort of similar education or guidance.
Excellent. Thank you so much. My guest today, again, has been Scott Wede, the Executive Director of Surplus Line Association of Arizona. Scott, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your words of wisdom with us.
Well, Doug, thank you for asking. It's been my pleasure, and best wishes.
These materials are designed to give general information on the specific subject covered for discussion purposes only. They are not intended to be a comprehensive summary or exhaustive treatment of the subjects covered. These materials and the related presentation do not constitute legal advice or an opinion. You've been listening to ABCs of Business, Always Be Compliant, brought to you by ILSA, Insurance Licensing Services of America. ILSA is the insurance industry's regulatory compliance expert. For more information, visit ilsainc.com or call 254-729-8002. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you'll join us for future episodes.